All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Boca Podcast. I am your host, Nathan Holritz. It's good to have you here today. For those of you that may be live streaming with us, it happens to be Monday. I hope you had a good weekend, and I hope you're poised for a really, really great week this week. Lots of exciting things happening. I'm going to introduce our brand new guest here in just 1 second, but for those of you that are live stream, don't hesitate to jump in, ask questions, join the conversation. It's one of the biggest benefits of these live streams is to be part of the conversation. So don't be shy. You can even send us a few funny emojis if you'd like to. For those of you streaming on Facebook.com/Boca Podcast, and then of course YouTube.com/Boca Podcast. And for those of you that are listening to the audio version after the fact, follow us on Instagram at Boca Podcast, BOKEH Podcast, and keep up to date with the latest information about upcoming live streams. We're going to have 1 to 2 live streams a week. And you can put those in your calendar and then come join the conversation with us. All right, enough of that. I want to introduce our brand new guest for today. Victoria St. Martin is here with me. Victoria, thank you so much for making time to come hang out with me on the podcast. I think we figured out all the technical, logistical issues. We're good to go.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, and we're going to jump right into a really important topic here in just 1 second. But if you don't mind, will you just briefly introduce your business? Just mention basically, I mean, where you're based, first of all, but also what your specialty is, your brand position, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Victoria St. Martin. I'm a Chicago-based wedding photographer. I mostly specialize in like larger traditional or like more traditional weddings. I love a big bridal party, wedding party. I love the hype that, big weddings bring. And my brand positioning is capturing every intimate moment and every spilled drink, which I feel like kind of enables that whole, the big party at the end, but also focusing on those intimate, like candid, overlooked moments in a wedding day.
And I like the way that you described that. In fact, let me actually jump over to your website because you've got this at the above the fold homepage of your site. For everybody listening in, if you go to victoriastmartinphotography.com, just like it sounds, you'll see this at the top, but it says capturing every intimate moment and every drink spilled. So the moments, the important moments that many people might think about when it comes to wedding photography, and then of course those in-between moments as well. And you very clearly present that there at the top of the homepage of your site, which is not always the case, Victoria. So major props to you for that. Clear, distinct brand position, easily accessible. They didn't have to scroll through paragraphs of text to figure out what your business is about. And so that's really great. The other thing, this is a little side note, but a little bit of a pet peeve for me. A lot of photographers don't make their social media profiles easily accessible. Like if I land on your website, I'm like, oh, this is a photographer. I'm really interested. I want to follow what they're doing. And then I want to try to find your social media. A lot of photographers these days, you have to scroll literally all the way to the bottom of their website. And then it's this tiny little icon at the bottom, and it may or may not be actually linked to their Instagram account. Right. And you actually have that here at the top of your page. So top right corner, easily accessible. And I'm curious to get your take on this because I know the argument is, well, I don't want to send visitors to my website away from my website. I want them to spend as much time on my site as possible. But was that intentional to put that there? Top of the page so that they could easily find it?
Yeah, so that is major props to my web designer. Her name is Buffalo Collective, and she is amazing. I think she definitely understands like the client experience on the website a lot more than I do. But I get a lot of, like I'm on social media a lot, and I also get a lot of clients through social media. So I definitely understand like hopping on somebody's website and wanting to follow them. And also when you're hiring a wedding photographer, you're most likely looking for somebody you want to vibe with and like be with throughout the whole day. Yeah. And I feel like following their social media is like a big part of getting to know who they are if they're good at sharing about their life and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, and here's the thing, and then I'm going to jump back over to your site. For anybody who's not live streaming with us, we're looking at victoriastmartinphotography.com on the homepage here. And this is, I think it's a beautiful, not even a compromise, but a nice balance, right? It's if somebody wants to come to your website, they can do just that. They've got that clear, distinct brand position at the top of the page. They can scroll down, learn more about you, learn more about your business. It's not distracting them from that experience by having some easily accessible social media icons in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And the thing that I don't get about that argument that we don't want people to be distracted from being on the site, number one is I don't think having icons there distracts people from being on your site. But two, to your point, Victoria, it's a great point. people engage with us most on social media, not on our website, right?
Right.
We may get an email
Right.
or a phone call occasionally, but where people are going to actually engage with our brand is where they can most easily see the latest from us, and that is on social media. So I've never quite understood that argument to the full extent that it's made. But I love the example that you've set here about how you can have a nice balance, and certainly having a beautiful site, easily guide them through the experience there on your site, but then also give them easy access to your social media.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like also like your website is crucial and it's super important to have one and have it be clear and concise and like flow very well through the client experience. Like that is, part of the start of the client experience is on your website. But yeah, after they book with you, they're likely heading to your website maybe, 3, 4 times, but they're going to be seeing your stuff on social media
Yep.
all the time if they're following you. And that, is part of at least part of my brand is like, being good friends with my couples and wanting to, dive deep into their lives and having them dive deep into mine and just feeling like
100%.
that connection together. So
Yeah, that's where it happens is on social media. That's why I've not understood the argument, because ultimately we do want them to come hang with us on social, whatever the platform at the moment is. So anyway, we'll leave that alone. I could keep going.
yeah.
I've been so confused about that thought process. But yeah, shout out to your web designer as well. Good call there.
Yeah, she's
So,
amazing.
well, I want to, for everybody who is a regular listener who's listening in today or watching today, the Boca Podcast, something that we normally do, we have these kind of introductory questions. And Victoria, I told you before we got started, we're kind of experimenting with a new format. We're going to actually nix those intro questions and just jump right into the topic. And so for those of you that are regular listeners of the Boca Podcast, shoot us a DM on Instagram. Let us know your thoughts of the shorter format. Do you prefer the longer form conversation where we have those intro questions? Do you prefer us to get straight to the topic? Do you like this shorter style format? Let us know. Shoot us a DM on Instagram at Boca, BOKEH podcast. And I appreciate your thoughts. All right, Victoria. So we're going to be talking about how to create a memorable experience for couples. So this is, of course, especially relevant to photographers working with couples, wedding photographers, engagement photography, and so forth.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting conversation, and we've talked about this on the podcast quite a bit, the significance of experience, but it is easier than ever to take a really beautiful, to take one, to create one. I mean, I don't know if you've played with any of the AI engines as of late where you can just go in and type some words and it creates a beautiful picture. Of course, I've got my phone here.
No.
I can take a beautiful picture with that. There's so many different ways that we can create beautiful images, and of course, do post-production as well that lends itself to that. It's not really what sets professional photographers apart anymore, right? 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was a lot harder to get a beautiful picture that people would stand in awe at. Not the case anymore. So what really is going to help set us apart is creating a really memorable, impactful experience. And I'm curious for you, what was the kind of turning point in your business where you realized, you know what? Yeah, pretty picture is important, but I really need to emphasize the experience that I'm bringing to my couples. When did you realize that?
Yeah, I feel like part of me always kind of knew it was going to be a big part of what I wanted my brand to be. And I think this is partly a personality trait of myself, but I am like always striving to avoid to disappoint people. So that was like a big part of running my own business and working with other people, that I was like, knew that I wanted to give this awesome experience right off the bat. But I would have to say that maybe some of my turning points would be when I did drop the ball. Obviously, like we're all human and sometimes we forget to respond to an email, or we let, a client slip through the cracks or whatever it is. And every single time that I let something like that happen, like that would sit with me so deeply inside. And I would just be like, wow, like, I can sense their frustration in the email being like, oh, like, this photographer isn't responding to me, or whatever it is that I, accidentally didn't do. And I really, like, from every single one of those experiences, I learned like I wanted to avoid that ever happening again. So of course, like I said, we're all human and I'm going to keep making mistakes, and that's how we learn and grow.
Sure.
But I love to diminish that every single time that it happens, and, slowly move into a better client experience. But
how long have you been in business too, just for a little bit of context?
Oh yeah, I've been in business for about 4 years now.
4 years. Okay. And by the way, I have to say
actually
too,
went to college for it.
Oh, did you really? Okay, so you've got that. Well, I was going
Yeah.
to say, if we pull up your Instagram, and for everybody listening in, Victoria St. Martin on Instagram, just like it sounds. Of course, we'll link to it in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. But Victoria, just to be very clear, your work is beautiful. So, I
Thank
think it might
you.
be easy for a lot of photographers to listen in and say, "Oh, Nate doesn't place any priority on the technical savvy of a photographer, or on how to create a truly beautiful image and how to set ourselves apart from the amateur photographer when it comes to technical skill." And that's the last thing that I'm suggesting. I think it's on us as photographers to continue to push ourselves. And you've done that. You've got
Yeah.
the technical skill. But I think, again, with all the tools that we have now to make it so much easier for us to create a beautiful picture, it's more important
Yes.
than ever to create a really, really great experience, a memorable experience that somebody walks away from. They're like, "Oh my goodness, have you heard about Victoria? We just like our minds are blown. I mean, her work is
Yeah.
beautiful, but then she came and photographed her wedding day or did her engagement session, and it was just so much fun, and she made it so easy." And then we got the pictures back really fast, and on, of course. And we'll
Yeah.
talk about how you create that experience, but that's what makes the biggest impact. And so I think it's
Absolutely.
great that you emphasize that.
Yeah, and I also think about it like when you go out to dinner, the food could be amazing. Like the food could be absolutely amazing, but if your server is rude to you or not paying attention to you or not refilling your water whenever you're out and you're thirsty, like those are little things that diminish that experience from eating at this restaurant again. And it's the exact same thing in our business. Like we want to pick up on all of these little things just to make that experience even better without being asked, without being told from our clients.
Great point.
And they might not even like, it might not be things that they mention in your review at the end of the day, but that their whole total picture of working with you is that much better and that you got that awesome review because of all these tiny little things that added up to that experience.
Well, being in business now for 4 years, I mean, that's a relatively new business, but again, you obviously have the technical experience, but you went into this really kind of knowing for yourself that you wanted to make sure that you left those clients with really great experience. And so I'd love for you to walk myself as well as our listeners
Yeah.
through how you go about creating a memorable experience. I think you told me before we get started that you've got kind of 5 big ideas that you're going to share with us. I'm getting ready to take notes here. I got my pen and paper. Go ahead and go to
Yeah.
town, Victoria. Let's jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that the number one thing that starts off a really good experience is clear and open communication. So that starts even before that they inquire with you, or even before that they reach out with you. It starts on your social media. It starts on your websites. Just having very clear, concise, and open communication with your clients, letting them know exactly the experience that they can expect with you on your website, guiding them through and answering questions before, maybe even they know that they have them. So I think that is a really, really big point, and it is my number one point. So, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say before you keep going, and I know we've got a lot to cover here, but will you take me to an example, a really specific example of how you go about beginning to set those expectations? I like that you point out that this starts before they even actually talk to you, right? Their likely first visit is going to be to your social media and or your website. Take me to an example in your website where you begin to kind of create and manage expectations for a potential client.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think on my About page would probably be a good example. So if you go to my About page and you start scrolling through, a lot of photographers think that the About page is like about like telling them about themselves, what kind of equipment they use, what school they went to, what degree they have. A lot of my About page is actually about my clients and what I can do to serve them and what I can do to help make their day that much more memorable and capture it beautifully. So, right there, it says, bottom line, be exactly who you are, and I will do the rest. It goes into a paragraph talking about how, through my mix of fly on the wall style photography and also directing, like, you guys are never going to feel like you don't know what to do with your hands, or you're never going to feel like super uncomfortable with me. I promise, like, I'm going to take care of you every step of the way. So I feel like a lot of my website actually has a lot of different parts of the day over explaining how I approach my photography and what my philosophy is behind taking wedding photos.
Versus just kind of talking about yourself. Because you're right. A lot of photographers do that. They take that about page, they go on about the history, their background in photography, and the things that they'd like to do in the weekend and what their favorite coffee drink is and whatever. And of course, my regular listeners know I regularly kind of make fun of that, because I think at the end of the day, it's wonderful that photographers have swung in the direction of creating a more personal brand and letting the potential client know more about them. But I think we've gone to a little bit of an extreme where, and I love that you use the word service, how you serve the client. I think that is what should be at the forefront. Like, how can I best take care of this client or this potential client who is curious about my brand? And you do that. In fact, for anybody who's listening in who is not actually watching the live stream, I'll just read this real quick if it's okay, Victoria. It says, bottom line, be exactly who you are and I will do the rest. And then, like you said, the paragraph, wedding planning doesn't need to be stressful and you don't have to do it alone. I got you. You want to enjoy your big day, so I make sure you have time for just the two of you alone. And I try to get you back to your cocktail hour as soon as possible so you can enjoy your friend's company. More importantly, I promise through my mix of direction and fly-in-the-wall style of photography, you will feel relaxed and excited in front of my lens. All I ask of my couples is to be open-minded, open-hearted, respectful, and unapologetically you. If you can categorize yourself as these things, I'm already obsessing over you. And I love it. Really, the focus is on them, and it's how you're going to help them feel. And really at the center of a great brand is that message. So beautifully done.
Thank you. Yeah. And like, I also agree that I like to let my, clients know a little bit about myself and fill them in on who I am and what I like. And if you go back to that website, right underneath, there's a button that says click to find my favorite things or a few of my favorite things. And then you click and it opens up and it tells you my favorite drink, my favorite place in Chicago, the music I'm listening to right now, all of this fun little tidbits about me, but that's not what the focus of my about page is. That's like if they want to click, and read more about me, if they want to know more, but it's not what the focus is, because to me, my focus is my couples when I'm serving them.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we start there. And again, I'm taking notes old school. Clear and open communication is kind of the first step to creating a really memorable experience from your perspective. Take us to number 2, if you will.
Yeah, actually, I have a couple more on that, if that's okay.
Oh, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it goes past your website. So it also goes into your inquiry form, asking the right questions and asking, to hear a lot from the couples. If you look on my inquiry form, I have a long format inquiry form asking them a ton of questions. That way, I'm not just getting price shoppers. I'm not just getting people who are, looking around. Maybe they are, but they do have to take the time to fill that stuff out. So I know that they're going to be very, interested in working with me. And I want people who are interested in working with me so I can be just as invested in them. And then when I get on a phone call with them, I love to set expectations. I love to do my phone calls over video. So it's a face-to-face interaction. I understand that a lot of people aren't totally comfortable on video and stuff like that, but I find it so crucial because there are so many nonverbal cues to communicating that is really, really important. And if you can learn to pick up on these things and learn to pick up on, nonverbal cues, body language, facial expressions, stuff like that, you can really start understanding how your clients want to be communicated with, what they're vibing with, what they're not, as it's happening, instead of like just on a phone call and just hearing silence and hoping that something landed. Exactly. So video calls are honestly, they were a game changer for me. I think I started them about a year ago. And since I've been, seeing such a better connection with my clients, because you can talk to them on the phone all day long and feel like you had a really great conversation. Sure. But, then you get in person and it's like you're talking to someone new. So video calls are the closest thing we can do without, getting in person nowadays. And then I love to just... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, going back to your inquiry form, and I popped it up on screen for everybody who's live streaming, but it is really, really long. And that's fascinating to me because in a world where everybody's attention span is supposedly like 2.5 seconds or whatever, the fact that you actually, like if somebody is actually interested in working with you, they've got to make the time to fill that out. I think it's a really interesting approach. I don't think I've ever seen an inquiry form quite that long before. It really does filter out those people that aren't serious about your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a game changer for me in the type of clientele that I'm also getting. At the beginning, I feel like I always had somewhat of a longer form contact form, but it's gotten longer and longer as I've been in business, and I've noticed that the clients coming in are people that like are really just my kind of people.
Hmm.
People I'm really excited about working with, the people
Okay.
that love me and like vibe with the things that I also vibe with. So it's been awesome on my end of like the experience of working with my clients because they're people that I just know that I'm gonna love and really jive with. So
Can I ask how many weddings you have booked for this year, or how many you at least target to shoot in a year?
yeah, so me myself, I am shooting. I think it's 27 this year. I
Wow,
think
that's awesome.
maybe one might have gotten rescheduled or canceled, so maybe 26, 27.
Okay.
Um, Next year, I think I'm going to absolutely cap it at 25, maybe between 23 and 25, just to like, again, really make those experiences just that much more personal for each of those
Sure.
clients.
Yeah.
Last year, I'm sure we all felt this with COVID and all the reschedules and stuff like that, but I just had way too many clients in one year. And I feel like that client experience kind of took a little bit of a dip because there was just so many. Like the sheer mass of the people I was working with was too many to personalize the experience as much as I wanted to.
Sure.
So I'm trying to get some numbers down just to make that experience that much better. And then I actually also have associates on my team. So
Hmm.
I think total we're doing about 41 weddings this year.
That's awesome. Well, the reason I ask about that, or the main reason, is because, again, a lot of photographers probably see or hear. I mean, I'm looking at, for anybody who's not looking at the live stream, I'm looking at maybe, I don't know, 15 to 20 questions or fields that need to be filled in on this form. Most contact forms, it's like maybe 4 or 5 fields that have to be
Yeah.
filled out. And then that's just kind of the starting point, and then the photographer contacts them and goes from there. But the fact that you are booking that many weddings, despite the fact that you're making it a little bit harder for that potential client to get in touch with you, I think is a really interesting point of conversation and an example ultimately for our listeners as well. It's not a bad
Yeah.
idea to intentionally filter for the right people, and those that are actually serious about your brand are the
Right.
ones that are going to take the time to fill that out. So that's really, really cool. And I mean, it helps in communication. You're capturing a lot of information there through that form as well. So I think that's important to
Yeah,
note.
I get a lot of information to treat them exactly as I want to be treated and talk to them about the things that they want to talk about. I even ask for their pronouns, which I think is really important these days to include that because if you're getting somebody who wants to be referred to as they them, I know to refer to them as they them by that first email instead of like just seeing a name and like thinking of it as female or male and just going that way. I can really respect them as a person and how they want to be treated, so I think that's really important. And a lot of the fields are also not required to be filled out, so if they don't want to, they don't have to. But I also notice that like the people that fill out every single field are my kind of people. Like those are people that really respect all of the questions that I'm asking and are gonna want to work with me. So
Yeah, fair enough. Okay,
yeah.
well, we got through the first point. We still have a lot to cover. So let's jump to the second
Yes,
kind of big idea
absolutely.
behind the experience you create for your couples.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes in or well back to the first point, but connecting with them and as many levels as possible. So again, starting with that inquiry form and getting as much information from them, and then on the call asking them like genuine questions about their day and how they're doing and what they're up to and where they live here in Chicago. There's so much like, especially I feel like here in Chicago, wherever somebody lives or wherever someone lives, I can refer to a restaurant. I'm like, oh, have you been there? Or, oh, have you tried this bar or whatever it is, just to connect with them on any type of level right there and start that like friendship and start building that friendship. Um, so I'm definitely very like thoughtful about the questions that I ask them and try to have communication flow as naturally as possible at the same time. And then throughout the process of actually working together, I send a lot of questionnaires and information to my couples and emails, asking them to, again, divulge a lot of information to me. So in the questionnaires, I ask them questions like, what was your most memorable date? What is your love language? What's your favorite type of food and dessert? What kind of vibes are you going for this engagement session? All of this so that I can really, really understand what they want this photo session to be like, and what they're envisioning they want the end product to look like, but also to personalize it. If in case they don't have, a perfect vision, I can personalize it with those love languages. I love being like, okay, so if your love language is words of affirmation, I might give them a prompt and be like, okay, I want you guys to like just tell each other what you're really proud of what you did in the last year, or how you've handled the wedding stress, or
That's
whatever it
cool.
is. And then take a step back and let them like enjoy that moment, and let them, live in that love language, and share and create like a meaningful conversation between them, so that they can leave the session also feeling like, wow, like, I feel more in love with my partner. I feel like Victoria's awesome. I feel like we got awesome photos. Like all of that put together is going to make viewing their photos just like that much more special for them.
I like the idea of using love languages as part of the session, like understanding what is meaningful to them in the context of the relationship, and then leveraging that in the communication during that session. I think that's a really cool idea. I don't think I've heard of a photographer talk about that before.
Yeah, it's something new I've been doing, and I'm really, really liking it. So, yeah, with words of affirmation, like telling them to tell each other what they're proud of, what their favorite thing is about the other one. That's actually a question on my questionnaire too. What's your favorite thing about your other partner? And I've had a lot of couples tell me like, nobody's ever asked us this before, and it really made us like think. Like, yeah, we've told each other like things we love about each other, but nobody's blatantly asked us, and we really like loved
Hmm.
answering this question together. And I tell them like both answer. Like you can't just have one partner fill this out and then, the other one's off the hook. Like I want you to both be in this with me.
Right.
And then with like touch, I love, the prompt of like, okay, I want you guys just to hug like you haven't seen each other in a long time. Cause like I can tell you guys where to put your hands and what's going to look best and stuff like that. But I think there's something like my love language is touch. And I think there's something so special about the way that you hug the people that you love.
Hmm.
So that's like a prompt that I would do if touch is their love language.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but you're right. Like sometimes, especially for people that are maybe not necessarily comfortable in front of the camera, if everything that you do for the sake of the camera is guided by you, the photographer, it may end up kind of translating to a little bit of a stiff interaction between the two. But if you're letting them kind of take the lead, hug the other person like you haven't seen them in a long time, they're going to
Yeah.
translate that in a different way than maybe you would for them. And so what you
Hmm.
get as a finished result might be that much more impactful. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And also, it's like, there's so many. I do a mix of like pose and prompts and candids, and I show them exactly how I want them to do the things that I'm telling them to do. So they're never going to ask me, like, where do my hands go? But with a
Sure.
prompt like that, like hug, like you haven't seen each other in a long time, I feel like even if it's not the best photo to a photographer, that is so much more meaningful to that couple because it's them in that photo. It's not what I wanted them to do, it's how they want to interact with each other and how they do on a daily basis.
That's really cool. Okay, so we're starting with clear and open communication. Then number two, look for as many. I wrote it down as touch points, relevant, of course, to the current conversation, but connection at as many touch points as possible. So looking for opportunities after, especially that initial interaction, whether through the contact form or otherwise, as many opportunities to connect with them in communication as possible. And
Yes.
so that's number two. Take us to number three, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, number three is actually to take care of myself so that I can take care of my clients. I feel like as photographers, and especially maybe like on the newer end, because I know that this is something I'm starting to focus more on coming into like my later years of being in business, rather than like if I look back at my first year, like I was giving all hours and all ends of myself to my clients. And now I'm realizing that that is not the best client experience, because if I'm not at my 100% for my clients when I show up for them, then I'm not giving them the best experience, even if I was like up late hours, like prepping for their session or whatever it is. So for a wedding day specifically, just knowing yourself and knowing how you like to start the day is really, really important. For me, I like to start my morning slow. I'm a night owl, so like I like to sleep in the mornings. I like to take it very slow and easy. I am a big personality on a wedding day, but I feel like my mornings need to be slow and quiet. I like
Mm.
sipping on my coffee, walking my dog around the block, that kind of thing. Um, I didn't used to do this and I realized how dangerous it was, but now I pack snacks, I pack water, I pack all the things on a wedding day. You and I were talking about how long wedding days are. And yeah, like I had two almost 10-hour weddings this weekend, and without my snacks and water, especially we're in a heat wave right now in Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, it's very dangerous. I don't want to faint and then not be able to serve my clients for the rest of the night because I wasn't taking care of myself. Um,
I have
and
to
then
jump in really quick
another,
right there too,
oh,
because
yes.
I think it's, first of all, what you're suggesting is super important, in that you bring the nourishment that you need. There was this kind of, and I think it's kind of died down for some time, and maybe you saw it as well, Victoria, online Facebook groups or otherwise. Photographers were ranting and raving about how important it was that they got the same meal that the bride and groom were getting. And I don't know, it was just very kind of entitled mentality that was very surprising to me, because I remember when I started wedding photography 20 plus years ago,
Yeah.
that was so far from the thought at the time. The focus was, back to your earlier point, on taking care of the client. I'm there to do a job,
Right.
and I'm
Right.
provide really great images for the client. And certainly I'm going to work to give them a really great experience. And the last thing I'm thinking is, what are they going to feed me at, tonight, when everybody else is sitting down, when I'm supposed to be the
Right.
photographer? What are they feeding me? Did I get the same meal to the bride and groom, or the bridesmaids and groomsmen got? It was just a very kind of weird mentality again to me. I think it's a good thing. It'd be a very nice thing, certainly, for a meal to be provided there at the reception for the
Yeah.
photographer. It's great. But I think it's ultimately on us as the photographer too, knowing that our primary job is to be the photographer, not to be part of the wedding party, that we do bring what we
Yeah.
need for ourselves as well. And it's a, especially for new photographers that might not think of those details. They're thinking about their batteries and lenses and the cameras and memory cards and everything. But yeah, make sure that you take
Yeah.
nourishment with you. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Same goes for, how many hours you work in a week and, how you like to divide your week up and stuff like that. Because I know that business owners can definitely fall short of wanting to just um, like work all hours of the day and put everything we can into our business. But that can be dangerous. And then you're not giving your clients 100% when you are chatting with them. You're giving them, 3 a.m. Sleepy Victoria emails instead of, wide awake 12 p.m. emails or something like that. Um, yeah, so I think it's really important to just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Another like quick example is I've started doing like a shoe change halfway through the day. So I wear like different shoes at the reception than I do during the day when I'm running around. And it just gives my feet a break. So that's a quick
Interesting.
tip for anyone that, yeah, I started that this year. Another photographer explained it to me, like how much better her feet feel. And I was like, that sounds great because, like, yeah, your feet hurt at the end of the day. And like just changing the way that they sit in your shoes does like make a difference on that.
Okay, so I know this is very subjective, but would you mind sharing the brand of shoes that you have found worked really well for you on wedding days?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually wear sandals, Teva sandals during the day, especially here in the summer in Chicago. Like it's nice to just not have like, tennis shoes on. So I wear Tevas during the day, and then at night I wear my Asics. I have like custom, uh, what are they called? Foot
Insoles?
soles?
Insoles?
Insoles. There we
Hmm.
go. Yes, I have custom ones of those, but I switch between two different pairs. So sometimes I wear those. Sometimes I just wear my regular like running shoes at night. So
Okay, so let me ask you your thought on this, because who was I? Maybe one of our guests recently, we were talking about this, but I've noticed a trend in recent years where there is less an intent by photographers to show up with like a sense of formality. The dress has become much more casual. And you're talking about sandals and Asics as far as shoes go. How do you balance that with some level of professionalism in the way that you present yourself?
yeah, I think so. There's definitely a balance between being professional and being able to be comfortable and be yourself. I think part of, running your own business is that you get to decide where that line is and show your clients exactly who you are, and they get to hire you if they like it, and they don't get to hire you if they don't. So like I swear with my couples, I, treat them just like I would any of my friends. I don't think I need to be this prim and proper person on a wedding day to be able to deliver an awesome experience and be a
Okay.
professional photographer. With the sandals, I make sure my toes are painted and everything like that. But honestly, nobody's really looking at my feet during the day and being like, wow, why is she wearing that?
Okay.
And if she is, if they are, at the end of the day, I feel like everything else that I've delivered on that experience is going to just like make that thought go right out of their head.
Irrelevant.
On top of like, awesome images at the end of the day. So
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I'm just thinking like a lot of weddings become, I mean, they're black tie events in some cases, right? So there's this, if you're there as the photographer to be part of the event, to be in some cases kind of that hidden individual that's just there, the fly on the wall to capture those moments that you were talking about earlier. If we're there with dress that stands in stark contrast to what everybody else is wearing, does that make us more of a spectacle than what we should be? It's more of a question for me. I know my preference would
yeah.
be, in fact, I don't know that I ever, for any wedding, dressed extremely formally. But it seems like
Yeah.
there's some level of formality that would make a lot of sense, especially at a super high-end wedding, black tie style event. And so that's just
Yes.
still where I
Yeah.
wonder, like, should we as photographers hold ourselves to at least a certain standard in those cases?
Yeah. I feel like I always wear black. I always wear like, upscaled clothing. I'm never gonna wear like black jeans or something to a wedding. They're always like nice pants and stuff
Sure,
like that.
sure.
It's really probably only the shoes that I just let slide because I want to be comfortable and be able to like, run around all day with my couple
Yeah.
and deliver that awesome experience. But and then at night when honestly more guests are seeing me, when it is the more formal black tie part of the wedding,
Hmm.
is when I slip into my, closed-toed shoes.
Okay, fair enough. I don't mean to harp on the
Yeah.
topic. It was just something
Yeah.
I was curious about, and I think literally just this past week had a podcast guest on, and we were talking about it. So, all right, let's keep going there. So that third point, the
Yeah.
importance of taking care of ourselves so that we can show up well for our clients, and I think it's a really important one. Again, there's so many topics actually in American culture that it's so predictable. Like we swing from one extreme to the next. And you see this phrase or these words self-care across Facebook and Instagram, and especially in the photography industry. And I think it's super, super important I don't think the extremes are necessary, but certainly important that we take care of ourselves so that we show up energized. You were talking about bringing a certain energy to that event. If we're showing up
Yeah.
tired and exhausted because, yeah, like you said, we already put in 40, 50, 60 hours that week, and then we have to shoot an 8-10 hour day on top of that, it can be pretty like detrimental, I think, to the experience that we're providing for our clients. It's a really good point that you make. Okay, take us to number 4, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yep. Number 4, I'm very aware of everybody during the day, on a wedding day, on an engagement session, just everybody who's involved and what the vibes are that day. So I'm very like susceptible to people's, like I said, nonverbal cues, facial expressions, stuff like that, body language throughout the day. But I'm also anticipating their needs throughout the day. So I have like a little emergency kit for weddings with like band-aids, extra flower pins for the boutonnieres, safety pins, hand sanitizer, deodorant, anything that they would need. I also recently started for the girls or anyone who's wearing heels. Sometimes we have to walk in the grass for a nice shady photo spot or something like that in the day. And I noticed a lot of girls like to wear stilettos. So I started buying those they're like little plastic caps that you can put on the bottom of your shoes so you don't have to sink through the grass. And that has made a big difference in just giving a client experience to everybody involved. It doesn't matter if they were the ones that hired me or not. I'm very aware of what parents want, of what grandparents are asking me for. If they want a photo with all their grandchildren on the day, I'm happy to do that. I'm also, so a big part of my brand and my photos are like a mix of like candids and directed photos. So I always have my camera in hand. I'm always looking for those moments happening, those big laughs, maybe some tears, maybe just like silly moments between the groomsmen or something like that. But also I'm asking people like during cocktail hour and at the party, like, do you guys want a photo together? And that is something that I feel like a lot of people don't like doing because it's just like a party shot of people with arms around each other. But I think it's really important because like these people all dressed up, they like the way that they look, they want a photo of themselves. Like, photos are so important. Like you said, nowadays, everyone's on their phones taking them, but like to have a nice quality professional photo of you at your best friend's wedding, or you at, your nephew's wedding, whatever it is. I think is just awesome to give everybody that's there a good experience. And then in the long run, like, your couple's going to love it so much more because all of their people are taken care of by you too. And also, who knows, you might get extra clients that way if you take photos of
Absolutely.
couples there. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think about, especially these days, photographers are delivering, and I don't know how many, maybe you can comment on this, Victor, how many images you deliver, but if a photographer is delivering 800 to 1,000 images, let's say on average, having 150, 200, 250, even 300 images from the reception, a lot of which are those candid portraits, it is an incredible opportunity to do a couple of things. Upsell. I mean, if you offer digital downloads for a certain price, or prints, or a combination of both, there's opportunity for those guests to be able to buy those prints or those downloads, an opportunity to increase revenue from that event. But then absolutely, if somebody has even just a brief interaction, we're talking about experience, even a brief interaction with you where getting an image, a photograph taken was super fun, simple. It took all of 15 seconds, and then they get this beautiful finished image that they can speak to from that 15-second interaction. How much better a commercial can you give, for your business, for your brand? So I think it's an incredible opportunity for the business, and I agree with you. I think that should be highlighted as an opportunity for photographers in general.
Yeah. Yeah. So just being hyper aware of everybody involved on the day is super important. So yeah, that's point number 4. And then moving
before you go to number 5, if you don't mind, and I'm really glad that you highlight this. I have a lot of respect for the fact that multiple times over now in our conversation, you've really emphasized the importance of service. That certain level of awareness of others around us and what they might need, and then coming prepared with even tiny little things that might make their day that much better. You're the photographer. So if you're like at a base level, if you provide a really great experience as a photographer, that's awesome. Now you're upping the ante by offering them even more, just these little details that you've considered, and you've brought these little things with you. That can go such a long way to making a really big impact. And you never know how that might translate to a referral down the road. I remember my business partner used to bring, what are they? The Sour Patch Kids. She liked eating them,
cute.
But like, especially hanging out with the bridesmaids, that was like, she was a popular person because she's giving out these little snacks, and they want something a little
that's
sweet
so cute.
and fun.
I love that idea.
It was awesome. Yeah. So it's funny how just little things like that, which of course cost us basically nothing, can make such a big impact, go a long way to creating an incredible experience. And so I'm really, really glad that you highlight that. Go ahead and take us to number 5, though. I think you were going there.
Yeah. Actually, can you give me 1 second? My dog knocked out my power source, so I'm going to plug my computer back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So sorry about that.
No worries. And while we're waiting for Victoria here, I'm going to bring up Andres. He said on YouTube, and thanks for commenting, Andres. He said, I live in Texas, so it is hot 9 months of the year. I don't wear long sleeves anymore, but do wear embroidered polo. And I definitely think that there are ways that we can be comfortable and yet maintain some level of professionalism. I found a shirt, and I wish I could remember the brand, because I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee market near Atlanta. It's extremely humid. Victoria, you said that you visited Chattanooga not very long ago. It gets super humid here.
Very hot.
And July, August, like if you step outside, you basically start sweating. And so I had to come up with clothing that could handle that, basically, right? So I was wearing a lot of black because that would kind of hide the sweat, but clothing that was loose enough that it was comfortable, had a certain level of formality to it. So it was, of course, buttoned down. And the material that it was made of was kind of a moisture wicking material, which was really great. And I'd wear that with some slacks, some dress slacks, and some shoes. But I think there are definitely ways that we can go about finding clothes that are comfortable and also maintain a certain level of professionalism. So thanks for commenting on that, Andres. And for anybody else that's live streaming with us, we've got just a few minutes left here. Don't hesitate to comment, join the conversation. As Victoria, you take us to number 5 here in the steps to creating a memorable experience.
Yes, absolutely. So number 5 is continuing the experience past the contract. So I have a lot of, different parts of my contract that explain when I'm going to deliver my photos, how I'm going to help them plan the timeline, how, what information I need from them. I'm going to be sending them forms, when they can expect sneak peeks, stuff like that. But I feel like continuing that experience past the contract, like I I have my second shooters take Polaroids while I'm doing the portrait session
Cool.
during a wedding day so that I can hand it to them during dinner and they have immediate photos of them. Also, Polaroids are like one of my favorite thing ever. Like I've been
Yeah,
taking
that's
them for so many
cool.
years.
Yeah.
Um, but they're just like I've been seeing them everywhere at wedding. Every like guest book has Polaroids in it, so I just think like how cute to be able to like put your own Polaroids from your own wedding day in there. Like that's so sweet.
Brilliant.
Also, these things aren't in the contract, so if you don't have time for them, if you forget, whatever happens, it's not like you're doing a disservice because it's nothing that you promised that you would give them. But if you can just go that extra step and do a little bit more for them, it is that much more meaningful.
I like the
Same as like
immediacy
I,
of that as well. Because I
yeah,
used something we used to do. I had a panoramic camera that I would take and photograph a special portrait of the couple there on that day, but I would give it to him after the fact. It took some while because I'd have it scanned and touch it up and then print it. And it was really nice
yeah,
as a gift, even a surprise gift. But being able to
yeah.
do something more immediate like that with a Polaroid camera, I think is a
Hmm.
brilliant idea. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I've gotten nothing but like amazing feedback. They're like, "Oh my God, this is so fun. This is so sweet. We didn't even know you took these. Like, thank you so much." And it's just like such a nice extra thing for them to hold and be like, nobody else could have gotten this except for my photographers because those were the only people that were around, you
That's
know?
cool. That's really cool.
Um,
Are you
yeah,
using for
and
those Polaroid
then
cameras? Are you just using like an Instax camera or what are you using?
yep. Yep, just the Instax Mini. They're just like the tiny
Mm-hmm.
ones. They're my
Mm-hmm.
favorite. So
They're
I've
perfect.
thought about getting like the wider ones and stuff like that. But I don't know. There's something about the tiny ones. Like I use one of me and like my people as like a bookmark in my books. Like I
Yeah.
use them everywhere, and I just think they're so cute.
I've
So
got a bunch of them.
uh,
I'm pointing the wrong way. Right behind me here on my refrigerator, I've got just
oh,
gobs of them
cute.
all over the refrigerator. I have a printer, so I'll
Yeah.
take pictures with the phone, and then it's Bluetooth to the app, and it prints on the printer there, so I can print anything I've got on my phone, which is really great. So
See,
they're
and that's
so much
awesome too,
fun.
because you can send them like a card. You
Mm-hmm.
can print it later, like the
Mm-hmm.
photos that you take, you can print it later and print them on the Instax minis and then send it to them in the mail too, if you like forget day of or something.
Love it.
So
That's a great touch.
there's a lot of little ways like that. I also I like to go like past my duties as a photographer on the day of and also remind them of those important moments. So if I get a chance to talk to them before the ceremony, because usually they're tucked away, I'm setting up my lights or whatever it is for the ceremony. If I do get that chance to go talk to my couple, I let them know, take a mental picture of your guests, like look back at your guests and take a mental picture of everyone that's here for you today. Like that's a photo I can't capture for you, but something that you will really hold near and dear to your heart. I remind them, hold that kiss a little bit longer, kiss on the way down from the aisle, all of these little things that they maybe would have like not thought of or forgotten, or maybe they were planning on, but because the day was so busy, I'm just giving them that extra reminder to do that right before
Yeah,
it's happening.
those cues.
Um, yeah, those cues exactly. Also, I mentioned like sneak peeks. So I promise about 10 sneak peeks to my couples a day or two after their wedding. I deliver anywhere from like 100 to 200, maybe sometimes over 200.
Whoa.
It is a lot of work on my end, and I know that, but it is worth it in every way possible for myself too, because I'm delivering them so much. And even if I can't get them 200 the next day, I'll get them those 10, and then a couple days later I'll get them the extra 200. But I get them a little portion of every single part of the day, all of their family photos, so that all of a photo with each of their bridesmaids, groomsmen, wedding party people, stuff like that, just so they one have a full picture of the whole day. Two, all of their family members like want the photos of them with their people,
Mm.
with their children. Um, and then also it gives the couple a big overview of the day so that they're not asking to see more photos just because you delivered anywhere between 10 to 60. Maybe a normal photographer delivers the sneak peeks. Maybe they're asking like, oh, when can I see the rest of the photos, even though you've told them when they can expect it, and they know that it will take some time, but they're just so excited. And I never blame them for asking, but it does save you from having to explain like, oh, like per the contract, it's 4 to
Yeah,
6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it is.
absolutely.
Sorry if you hear my dog running around in the background. um
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a mutt. I think she's like a Rottweiler or Doberman mix, but she's just
Okay.
needy and she's like, "Are you done on the phone yet?" But yeah, so I've gotten nothing but awesome feedback. Like
That's cool.
family members are so happy to see their photos already, and so are the wedding. Like I've been only a bridesmaid in one wedding, but I'm about to be a bridesmaid in two more weddings this year. And I wanted that photo of me and the bride to post right away, to be on like post on Instagram and be like, my best friend got married. And I know what that feeling is now as like one of the friends of somebody who got married. And I just want to be able to, again, give that experience to not just my couple, but to all of their special people as well, so that they can post and share and love on, the couple.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, I think
And
this is,
then,
no, please go ahead.
oh no, it's just a few more, but just like extending past the contract. So I follow my couples on Instagram. I'm constantly giving them hype and DMing them and liking their stuff. And recently I'm starting to send like thank you cards after the wedding as well. So just like, again, going like a step above the contract and above what you tell your couples you're going to do, just to continue that client experience throughout, past your time working together. So
How do
that
you,
was just my last point.
no, that's great. Actually, I love all the
Yeah.
details, and we'll make sure to put all of this information in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com for everybody listening in. One quick question though about the DMing: how do you maintain a level of, I guess, genuineness in the way that you're messaging clients or commenting on their photos? Because it's very easy for us, I think, as professionals, as business owners, to just kind of go through the motions robotically, posting, commenting, DMing,
Yeah.
just because that's what we're supposed to do. But and maybe just because I'm on the side of business, I'm a little bit cynical and I can see through that really easily. Maybe our clients can't as much, but I just think it's important to create a sense of genuine warmth and kindness. And I know that's who you are, Victoria. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how you go
Mhm.
about that when you DM your clients, when you comment, just to make sure it is that interaction's genuine.
Yeah, so I feel like when I'm DMing my clients, it's usually on their story. So if we're talking about Instagram, it's like they post something about their dog or where they are here in Chicago in the city, having a drink at this place or whatever. And I just like, one, I take note. I'm like, oh, that's one of my clients. And two, I'm like, I have a dog. That's an easy talking point. Or, oh, I've always wanted to try this restaurant. How is it? Just like little things that you would do with any like one of your friends on the daily. And people are just sharing about their lives constantly. So it's kind of easy to pick up on those points and just quickly ask a question over DM or, comment on how cute their dog is or be like, wow, like you guys are traveling right now. Like, oh my God, that beach looks so nice. It's so cold here in Chicago in the winter, whatever it is. And, my clients, I feel like I have developed our relationship enough throughout the time that we work together that
Yeah.
by the time I'm DMing them and even past, the wedding day and stuff like that, it just feels like I'm DMing a friend anyway. So
Mm,
it's just those little things that like it's the same way you would respond to your friend's or like your friend's Instagram story,
yeah.
the exact same way. And I do get clients that I've realized like, okay, like I loved working with them. They were great. They loved me, but like maybe we're not going to be DMing each other all the time on Instagram. And I feel like it's just one of those things that you read and you're like, how they're responding to the way that you're DMing them, how genuine they are, how much they're interacting with you still,
Sure.
that you can kind of gauge whether they want to like continue that relationship
Sure.
as much as like I do or not. So
Right.
yeah.
You're like, I'm not
Yeah.
feeling the reciprocity here. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But to go back to your early point, this is a really great one. We'll kind of finish up with this.
Yeah.
As much as we're obsessed in our culture about our uniqueness and our individuality, it's funny because at the end of the day, so much of, I guess, us as humans, there's so much commonality, I should say, between us as humans. There is always an opportunity to do exactly what you're talking about, Victoria, which is to look for something that you can relate to with the other person. And it could be something
Yeah.
like a pet. It could be a hobby. It could be, if you're a wedding photographer and you've been in a wedding before, or you've gotten married
Yeah.
before, or of course, as a wedding photographer, you've been to many weddings. There are so many different points of conversation there that you can relate to that client on. There are always ways that we can relate to somebody else that we don't know. And all we have to do
Yeah.
is just make a little bit of an effort. So I love that you highlight that. I think it's a really important
Yeah.
point that can't be missed. One last question. This actually came in from YouTube. Kevin said, I get uncomfortable walking around during the wedding. How do you deal with that not to disturb the wedding? I think it's a really great question. When you talk about creating a great client experience, the last thing that we want, of course, is to take over the day as the photographer. We want to kind of be to
Yeah.
the side in the background, capture the day, not
Yeah.
interfere. How do you go about doing that,
Yeah.
Victoria?
Um, are we talking about during the ceremony
I think that's probably
or just like the whole
where
day?
yeah, this becomes the most important point of conversation is during that ceremony. So
Yeah.
because you see sometimes whether it's a videographer or a photographer, sometimes don't have any qualms and they're down the middle of the aisle and they're up there front right next to the couple and in the way
Yeah.
of the guest's view. And of course that's the extreme end
Totally.
of it. But how do you handle that so you're not too obtrusive?
Yeah, totally. So, on let's say like a religious ceremony, a church ceremony, something like that, I'm always talking to somebody who works at the church or to the couple ahead of time, letting me know like where I'm allowed to walk, where I'm not allowed to walk. So, always trying to respect, um, the places that I am not allowed to go. But on, let's say, like a 20, 30 minute outdoor ceremony or something like that, I like to hang out on the sides a little bit more so that I'm one, not down the middle of the aisle, but also that way I'm photographing like the couple's faces a little bit more, like directionally. I hang out mostly on my 70 to 200 lens because of that. So I want to be a little bit further back, while also still getting those tight, beautiful, like creamy shots. So
Yeah.
I have a 70 to 200 2.8,
Hmm.
that is like my baby during the ceremonies.
My
And then on
favorite.
my other body, yes, absolutely. So like that is the way that I get away with it, is that I get to zoom in on that. And then on my other camera, I'm on a 35 for those more wide shots of like, the environment and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like most ceremonies there's enough room to hang out on the sides, and if there's not, I know a lot of like city weddings down here, sometimes they have just so many guests they pack it from aisle to aisle. I will just hang out in the back and kind of like pivot in the back a little bit and stay on my 70 to 200 for the most part.
Okay, cool. Well, I really appreciate that perspective. And thanks, Kevin, for chiming in. And for everybody who's live streamed today with us, I really appreciate you making time to spend time with myself and Victoria. Victoria, you've been wonderful to share so much practical information. And by the way, so much detailed information, which is really, really
Thank
great.
you.
Remind our listeners
Yeah,
one more
thank
time where they can find and follow you online so that they can continue to keep up with all that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is victoriasaintmartinphotography.com. That's Saint Martin, Saint, not St. And my Instagram is Victoria Saint Martin, again, just all spelled out.
Perfect. And I just popped that there up on the screen. Of course, we'll link to it in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. Thank you, everybody, for live streaming with us today. Make sure you check out the notes, the show notes, bokehpodcast.com. We'll be publishing those with the audio episode. And thanks once again, Victoria, for everything. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.